Welcome to Caritas Consciousness Project. I'm Gloria Coelho, and Caritas is dedicated to promoting the evolution of consciousness as the key to individual growth and global healing. We do this through online interviews and presentations by guest speakers, such as tonight, and classes and study groups. So we do a lot of things. Today, it's all online. It used to be at our center in Boulder, Colorado, but the pandemic changed all that. And I'm happy in a lot of ways because it gives us access to more presenters, no matter where they live. And it also broadens our audience to people from all over the world. So we draw from a wide assortment of both ancient wisdom and leading edge studies in science, consciousness, spirituality, and philosophy. We've been doing this for almost 19 years now, but in 2019, we began recording our presentations. Our video recordings are viewable through our website, caritascenter.org, and also on our YouTube channel, Caritas Consciousness Project. So check us out on YouTube. There's lots of videos on there, probably about 80 at this point. As a nonprofit organization, we do rely on the support of our members and donors to keep our program going. So if you enjoy our presentations and would like to support this program, you can make a donation or become a member on our website. Membership has benefits, and memberships start at $10 a month. So it's very affordable, and it really helps us out to be able to continue this work. And now let me introduce tonight's guest speaker. Luis Minero graduated in chemistry with honors from Florida International University. He's the author of the international bestseller, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience, or OBE. Luis had paranormal and out-of-body experiences since he was a teenager and has been volunteering, giving classes, and helping people to develop their OBE and paranormal skills since the mid-90s. Because he speaks Portuguese, English, German, and Spanish, he has lectured throughout the Americas, Europe, East Asia, Africa, and Australia. And likewise, he has published several of his studies in academic journals and has been invited to speak at many international congresses. So welcome, Luis, and thank you so much for making time for us this evening to find out about your work.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you, everybody. Really, it's a pleasure for me to be here and to be able to share this information that is, I know it's not the most common, mainstream information that you find in social media, let's put it this way. So I'm always very glad to see people who are interested on these topics and who want to get a little bit more information. So, and thank you to Caritas, of course, for inviting me. I'll be talking obviously about out-of-body experiences, about the title of my book as well, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experiences. And the idea is to, give you a good idea of this type of phenomena, this type of experiences, how it happens, what are sensations that maybe we feel, or maybe you have already felt, maybe even when you have been trying to have out-of-body experiences, but sometimes also, spontaneously in the middle of the night. Sometimes we have felt certain sensations and, we were wondering what they were. So I'll go through those, of course, and what happens when you leave the body, where can you go, what can you see, etc., etc. And of course, as you probably heard us discussing here with Gloria, if you have questions, I'll stop it every so often, to ask if there are questions, and if not, at the end, we'll have a little block of time, for you to ask anything that you want, anything, Don't ask why the sky is blue. I can answer it, but I had that question asked maybe like a couple of months ago. It's best if we keep, to the topic at hand, I guess. But really, you can ask anything that you want. Let me share my screen here. That way we can go through a few slides that we had prepared. Let me see. This is the one. Yes, there we go. So yeah, good. So first of all, I guess, the out-of-body experience, some of you I know probably know it fairly well, have had quite a number of them. For some of you, maybe this is a new topic. I don't know, but in essence, it's the moment when we separate from the physical body, we are outside the physical body, and we're able to regain our awareness, our consciousness. And therefore, we can have an experience outside the body, and we can observe things that are happening outside the body, whether here in the physical reality or even in other realities or in other planes. This, image, I guess, that is being shown here in this slide is already interesting, because sometimes we can go very far, and we'll talk about different types of experiences, but sometimes the simplest ones are the ones maybe the ones that make us think a little bit more. So just being in our bedroom, looking at our physical body, lying in bed, sometimes already it'll catch our attention. If some of you have already undergone this experience, you probably understand what I am talking about. But even if you haven't undergone that experience, at this moment, I don't know if you can imagine what might be your reaction if, for example, tonight or in a month or in a year, you happen to be outside your body, you're looking at your physical body lying in bed, sleeping. It's certainly something that makes you think or rethink, how we see life and how life is organized, I guess, because we spend so much time from this physical perspective, worried and concerned about our physical activities, and rightly so. Of course, we don't want to, we don't want to deny them, or we don't want to give them their due attention. But of course, the moment that you are outside your body, looking at your body and realizing that you can exist outside of your physical body, it also gives you a whole different perspective of, possibilities and, ideas about who I am, where do I go, what do I really represent? Do I just represent a body that I have been used to for many decades? Or, how can I understand, what more I am, right? But let me go, first of all, just before we get into, too many philosophical, let me put it this way, ideas or ideas that go too far. Let me give you, first of all, an idea, I guess, of the types of experiences that we can have, with out-of-body experiences. And here is, to start the conversation, to start, giving you some examples. This list here, by no means is it, complete or exhaustive. It's not, everything that you can see or do outside the body. But certainly you can be outside the body. You can be looking at your physical body in bed, as we were saying, or you can, leave your body and be outside your bedroom already looking at your living room, the kitchen, your house, and you will recognize it and you will understand where you happen to be. And this is, of course, what commonly is called the physical dimension or the physical reality. We're looking at the physical reality, which is the one we move in, while we are in the physical or using this physical body. But outside the body, we can be in the physical reality, as well as we can visit other, planes of existence or dimensions or spiritual planes or, realities. And when we are in those realities, some of them, they can look a little bit similar to the physical reality in essence, in the sense that they look almost like, for example, like a city or a place where people congregate and there are structures and people going about their businesses. And then there are several others as you keep on going, I want to say up in these realities, but as you keep on going to other realities or to other planes, the visual of these planes can start to change quite a bit. The landscape can start to change quite a bit, as well as the types of individuals that you find in those realities can change quite a bit. So some realities look a little bit more mundane. Other ones can look a little bit more, I'm going to use the word heavenly, or organized, or where everything seems to be very, very clean, very positive, very benign, very welcoming even. So, and we can have and be in those, or we can visit those different types of experiences. Probably here, let me link this with the so-called near-death experiences, which probably most of you might have already heard of them. The moment when a person dies physically and then they are prompted outside the body by this physical trauma. and many of them, they end up having the out-of-body experience component, right? They see themselves outside their body, they see the doctor working on their body, and they find themselves going to some other reality, plane, dimension. And then many of them, they use precisely this word, heavenly, to describe the place where they're at. And everything feels much more organized, in order. They are welcomed, they are shown different things. So in the out-of-body experience, certainly we can have these experiences where we are basically switching or changing between realities, and each one of those realities is an entire universe. We can spend, an entire life exploring these types of realities. The physical reality includes everything that is the physical world. So think here not just about, for example, your city or the country where you happen to be, or the entire planet, but everything, the entire solar system, as far as the Hubble telescope can see, as far as the James Webb telescope, which is the latest one, can see, all of that is just the physical reality, just the physical dimension. Of course, we can go further. Now, something that is very interesting when we start having out-of-body experiences that I think that many people are at least interested in is on the idea of confirming the fact that they are having an out-of-body experience. The question of how do I know that this is actually real, quote unquote, right? How do I know that I am actually having an OBE? The first thing that helps people, with concluding that it's an out-of-body experience and that, it's not for example, a different kind of dream, is of course our own level of awareness, our own internal state. So at this moment, sort of like joking, but trying to help with this point, if I were to ask you, are you dreaming this presentation, or are you awake, aware of this presentation? And I know, of course, none of you is going to pinch yourselves, because you know what awareness is like. So your own internal state, tells you, I am aware, I am awake, and there's no need for verification, really. Our own internal state lets us know that this is not a dream. Part of it also is, our own experience. We know what dreaming feels like. We know what being aware and awake feels like. And then we realize at this moment, I am aware, not dreaming. So our past experience also helps us. So when we are in an out-of-body experience, we can be as aware as we are right now. And in some out-of-body experiences, we can be even with a greater level of awareness than what we are right now, to the point to which the physical reality actually looks a little, or feels, or we remember it a little bit dreamlike, because at that moment we have much more awareness. Yeah. But also, by the way, sometimes we can be in certain out-of-body experiences with a level of awareness that is a little bit less than the one we have here. And sometimes in those experiences, yes, the experience starts to mix in with the dream and feels a little confusing. And sometimes actually we are not even able to find out if that specific experience was an OBE or a very lucid dream, because at that moment we just simply didn't have enough awareness. So and I say this just because if any of you has ever woken up, in the morning, or, after a dream, and you thought, what was that? Or you were asking yourself, was that an out-of-body experience, or was it a dream? It could have been, a very lucid dream, or an out-of-body experience with a lower level of awareness, and we were in this intermediary state that is actually not that uncommon. Yeah, but obviously we can have OBEs where our level of awareness is as clear as the right now. And what I mean by as clear as the right now, again, not just that we know that we are not dreaming, but for example, think about other mental faculties that you have accessible at this moment. Like if at this moment you try to remember your Facebook password or your phone number, what these items are. So when you are in an out-of-body experience, you find yourself with the same level of clarity. You remember your address. You remember your Facebook address. You remember that you were in such a rush this morning that you had to skip breakfast. And so you remember that you are the continuation of you, of course. So you can be at that state. And that, of course, confirms it. Besides that, obviously you can leave the body and you can see things happening in the physical reality where, something is happening in the physical reality, and then you can come back to your physical body, and then you can go and confirm the existence of something. For example, something that I used to do when I was maybe like 19 or so, and I realized that that I was having these out-of-body experiences. At the beginning, I would have a few I had, where I was so young and I had never read about out-of-body experiences that I really didn't even know what I was having. I thought that it was some type of cool dream. I really don't even know what the name I used back then. I, just would happen. But once I started to read and I realized that this was occurring, something that I thought of doing was to leave the body and try to go, for example, 2-3 blocks away from my house at that time, and try to go see the cars that were parked 3 blocks away to see if I could memorize, the license plate of one of them, and then come back to my body. And you had me a few nights, going there with a flashlight, to go see what was the license plate so as to verify it, so as to confirm it before they moved the car in the morning, because, I had no idea when they were going to move the cars. So I did that, a few times when I was, must have been 19 or 20 or so. But not that you necessarily have to do this, but it's just an example of something that you can actually see physically, and then you can come back to your body and then go and, confirm it on your own, of course. Now, and by the way, based on this, there are nowadays a number of experiments that have been done, that have been proposed, in different universities and by different researchers, precisely to try to start to accumulate more evidence on the out-of-body experience. So the researcher sets up a specific room, with an object that nobody knows, and the person who leaves the body has to leave the body, project, and try to go and see the object, and then come back and report it again, so as to start to accumulate a little bit more of information on the out-of-body experience. Now, so confirmations. Now, another interesting thing about the out-of-body experiences is that we can meet, of course, other individuals outside the body that at this moment don't have a physical body. And we can meet several different kinds of individuals. Some of the ones that are the most interesting are these ones that are more evolved, more aware, more conscious, more developed. And, generally speaking, we use the term spirit guides. But us humans, we are so good with synonyms that we have called them illuminated beings, masters, beings of light, angel, so many different names depending on our culture. So this individual that is more developed, and I know these are not perfect synonyms, different schools of thoughts have attribute to them different characteristics or slightly different characteristics. But certainly we can have these out-of-body experiences and interact with these individuals in a more direct fashion. And we can obviously ask them things usually related to our life or about, things that happen to be on our mind. And something that is interesting is that more often than not, we think that we are looking for them to try to find them to ask something. And more often than not, with the out-of-body experiences, we realize that they have been around us, for a certain portion of our life or in certain key moments, and that there wasn't really any need to look for them. They have been around, quite a bit. But of course, I know that it's easy for me to just simply say that. It is much more interesting when the person can have the direct experience of that and verify on its own. And furthermore, realize, it was on that specific moment of my life, and it was on that other one. And that's right. And they will even help us with that, to connect ideas of when, there was such an interaction. So some of the conversations, learnings, sometimes related to specific things about us that we can have with them are certainly, some of the most interesting experiences and at least the ones that many people tend to value more. Yeah. Now, another thing is we can have experiences outside the body in which we end up participating in an activity that looks like a class, like either like something is being taught and we are part of like a group of people that are receiving like a class that feels like a university class of sorts, like Psychology 101 or something like this is the feel of the activity. And it wouldn't surprise me if maybe some of you have had dreams that are similar to this, in which you are dreaming that maybe you are attending a class, you know, from somebody. And what is interesting, of course, when you have these experiences outside the body, you are very aware of the fact that you are participating in an activity like that, is that it starts to give you an idea of how things outside the body, and generally speaking, our trajectory as a soul or as a spirit, you know, is organized. It is because the moment that you realize there is somebody giving classes for other people to develop and to prepare, and the material that is being discussed is something that they're going to go and put into practice in their physical life, gives you an idea of these individuals are preparing themselves for something. So it means that somebody, first of all, they're organizing their future life, but it also means that somebody is helping them with that organization. And little by little, you discover that there is a very big effort of organizing the trajectory of development of evolution of souls, so to speak. So I have been in a few realities and a few of these activities in which I am attending classes for certain things. And on other opportunities, I actually, you know, almost like a lab assistant here in the physical reality, I have been allowed to teach, you know, some very one-on-one classes, you know, that are very, very basic, obviously for them, you know, about the physical reality. I was sort of like trying to explain to those individuals at that moment what being physical felt like, because it seems that they were going to have some new types of experiences that were similar to the ones that I was living at this moment in this specific, you know, physical experience that I'm in. So, so it wouldn't surprise me if you have been, you know, in situations like this. Now, let me just finish these 2 points, and I think there might already be a question there. I see a little bubble here on the chat, so we'll go to those after this, okay? But another experience that is also interesting, certainly initially at the beginning for participants is very interesting, is to have an out-of-body experience, or be in an experience in which somebody else also has an out-of-body experience at the same time, and you end up having a joint experience, a shared experience. So you meet with a friend outside the body, and obviously it becomes interesting because now the experience is not completely subjective. It's not only you who observed it, but now you can go and verify your experience, you know, and details of your experience with your colleague, with your friend. I also have had a couple of these. More recently, this friend of mine from New York, we were in Mexico City giving a class in the outskirts of Mexico City, and we ended up having an out-of-body experience in the hotel. I even helped him to recover a little bit of awareness outside the body. It was relatively easy just because he knows how to have out-of-body experiences. And of course, he remembers many of the details and, you know, of what we did on that specific opportunity. So joint experiences are also extremely interesting. And then this last, kind that is listed here in this transparency is when we have out-of-body experiences and we go and try to do assistance, help outside the body. So there can be many kinds, and just in this point, well, on any one of these points, really, we could stay the entire evening already just talking about each one of them, because there are so many details, you know, to them. So some of the assistances that sometimes are done outside the body are not unlike what you see here in the physical reality, when somebody is giving energy or vital energies to somebody else, something that you might have already seen or even practice or do it yourself, like Reiki, when you are passing or giving energies to somebody else, which is great, terrific. But what happens when you are outside the body is that you end up being in a state that gives you another advantage, or that better yet, that gives the assistants another benefit, another advantage, which is when you are inside the body, you are sending the energies to the other person, but you have to deal with your physical body that acts a little bit of like as a filter or a little bit of as a barrier to the energies. And before the energies fully are absorbed or go into the other person, there is also the filter or the barrier of the other person, which is the physical body of the other person. No problem with that. Still, if you can do it, please do it more. The world needs much more assistance, and thank you for doing that, by the way. But what I am here inviting you to think is that when we are outside the body, and if the other person is also disconnected from the body, now we can send the energy directly to the other person without the two physical bodies or the two physical barriers being in between. And then most of the energy arrives, and the assistance just becomes a little bit more efficient, effective in that sense, because we have, we are outside these restrictions, so to speak. Yeah. So this is one kind. Of course, there are several others. In this case, what the word in parentheses is trying to allude to, the rescues, is how sometimes some individuals are outside the body, maybe a little bit lost for many reasons. And when I say individuals, I mean people who have already passed away. They might be lost outside the body for many reasons. Sometimes they passed away, and just the passing away was such a shock that leaves them in confusion, or just the way in which they passed away also confuses them sometimes. And you might have heard how sometimes people say, let's try to help them, to take them to the light, or to bring them into the light, so to speak, which is precisely an expression in which sometimes the person is a little bit stuck at a certain dimension due to their physical attachments, due to their confusion, due to many things. Really, here comes the entire human drama, of which we could speak again an entire month, and we wouldn't cover everything. But in any case, just like we can, help them to go into the light, doing different types of practices from the physical reality, which are already done. Also, when we are outside the body, you can help them, along to sort of like rescue them from a specific a dimension or a plane that is maybe less favorable for them, and to bring them into a place in which they're going to be able to recover a little bit more of awareness, not be as confused, not be as heavy, and proceed with their evolutionary process as a soul, with their development process as a soul. So that is also another form in which assistance can occur, when we are outside the body. So I know here I already spoke about quite a bit of things. So let me take a step so that I can drink water as well. But also, in case somebody happens to have, a question of this aspect, we're still going to see several other things, especially, the more practical part. But please feel free to tell me if there is something that maybe is not as clear.
There are two comments in the chat.
Okay.
One is, they're both from Cheryl. She says, I just want to thank Luis for the difference his book has made in my life. And that's this book here, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience. And the other thing she said was this idea of OBE classes is so exciting. It reminds me of, in Spiritism, they have this thing called intelligent sleep, where before you go to sleep, you say, let me learn or let me serve, right? And then in your sleep, you do one or the other.
That's a good, that's a good intention to have, indeed. Yeah. And let me say, thank you, Cheryl, for your comments. I'm glad that the book, has helped you. And you can have outside the body classes. I don't know if this is what you're referring to. Outside the body, you can have classes, or I don't know if you're referring to classes given here inside the body, which is part of what you see here the organization, I usually give classes on their Mosaic Wellness and Education. We also give classes on out-of-body experiences, and that's what Gloria was mentioning in the beginning, that I've been giving classes since last century, you know. I have seen how people can develop that. And by the way, that's a good point to reinforce. Certainly in my case, and in the case of many individuals, the out-of-body experiences, sometimes they start spontaneously, involuntarily, and for a predisposition or for different reasons. You know how some kids sometimes are more predisposed towards playing the piano, or, you know, playing a specific sport, you know, these types of predispositions. So in my case, you know, I just started having them. But besides that, what you do see is that this is a skill that can be developed, and that basically anybody can develop. It's really just a matter of, like anything in life, really, of receiving some information, you know, dedicating some time, of course. You know, we need to put a little bit of effort. We usually don't run, you know, 10 kilometers or half a marathon just because we heard the idea. We usually have to train a little bit, and then, you know, until we get to be able to run 10K. So with the out-of-body experience, it's the same thing. After a few months of training, you know, people start to have their experiences. So that as well is, you know, something that people can do. And if you want, later on, we can talk more about that. But yes, let me see questions here. I think I saw a hand or two.
Oh, yes, Maru, you have a question. You have your hand up.
You're on mute, Maru.
Yeah, you need to unmute.
Yeah, that's typical of Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I have lots of questions, but of course, I will just try to ask one. So I had several spontaneous OBEs, and I want to ask a question about the spirit guide, and I would like to know how to recognize one. I know you say that they might have an appearance of angels or like a little bit different. My intention when I have an OBE, well, I have always spontaneous, but because I don't know when they're going to happen, I always think in my mind, if I'm going to have one tonight, I'd like to meet a spirit guide because I want some advice about something specific. So I had many opportunities to meet other people, you know, that they look kind of like humans, you know, but I never experienced meeting someone with that appearance of an angel, or that I feel something different. So I don't know if I've ever met one, or I'm still looking to meet one, because every time I have one on my mind, my intention is to meet a spirit guide. And I haven't had any experience that I feel somebody tried to contact me. So I don't know how to, you know, try to connect with one.
Right. Okay. Good question. Good question. Let me say a few things. First, usually they don't look like an angel. I know I used the word angel just because I was saying that some people call them angels.
Okay.
But yeah, they won't look, you know, in white, and I know you probably didn't mean this, but, you know, let me be explicit. They won't have the wings, you know, not necessarily. If they wanted to, they could, but it's not something that that they're going to worry about. But yeah, the way we recognize them really is usually when we are in their presence, we feel a lot more conscious, a lot more aware. Really, our thought and our thinking process become very clear, extremely clear. But when we are outside the body, something that tends to happen is that normally we would like, and this is part of the conditionings from the physical life, we would like to see the spirit guide, because here in the physical reality, we are so used to seeing. We even have the phrase, you know, seeing is believing, right? And even though, you know, we don't need to see in order for something to be real, right? You know, like people who are blind are still interacting, you know, with objects, and, you know, they just have never seen them. So outside the body, something that tends to happen is that usually the spirit guides, they tend to be in a plane of reality, or in a spiritual plane that is a little bit higher than the ones we usually project to, than the ones we usually go to in an out-of-body experience. So when we have an out-of-body experience and we go to the let me call them the normal realities where we usually go to, they are still a little bit away from us. And then normally, not always, but normally, it's not a visual interaction, but it's more an interaction with intuition, with energies, but that tends to be very clear. And sometimes we need to, what ends up happening is that we need to recognize it. First of all, this certainly occurs, but that they are a little bit, at a distance from us, which is good, by the way. I could even explain why they are away and why this is good. Why am I saying that this is good? But the thing that many times tends to happen with most people when they have an OBE is that sometimes, especially spontaneously, the spirit guide is sort of like already sponsoring that and helping that occurrence, that disconnection from the body. And then it becomes different or difficult for the person to recognize that there is an actual difference in the feeling of the energies, because they are there usually during the entire trajectory. And then it's hard to all of a sudden see the equivalent of somebody new just came into the room, because they really have been in the room, throughout this entire experience. So what I would say is, and something that can help you is, when you are in an out-of-body experience again, at that moment, try to think or try to connect and to think, where is my spirit guide? And, can I talk to you, or can I say something to you? And pay attention to the ideas and to the words that come into your mind, because it more often than not always, but more often than not, the communication will seem more telepathically. It's more than telepathy, but you will feel the words forming inside your mind, or that, not even the words, but the meaning forming inside your mind and letting you know something related to what you want to know, or, related to the fact that they are close by. That this individual or this soul is close by. And normally also with that interaction, your level of awareness, your level of consciousness will increase quite a bit.
And I have something. Oh, I'm sorry. Now that you brought the word awareness, I also read somewhere that when you're in an OBE, if you want to have more awareness or clarity, you can say to yourself, for example, awareness now or clarity now, and that will probably help a little bit more. Am I right?
Yes, I think this is William Bullman's technique, I believe.
Yes.
That I'm correct, right? I have spoken with a few of them, and sometimes I confused a couple of them. We don't get together physically that often, but yes, that's right. Yeah, you can, and especially one of the important things when you're giving these affirmations, both inside the body and outside the body, of course, is to put the intention of having that clarity. So sort of like a little bit more than just repeating the words, but trying to feel more clarity, trying to feel more aware, because that's going to help you to recover a little bit more the awareness, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, that can help you.
Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl has a question, and then Kathy.
Okay, go for it, Cheryl.
So Luis, thank you so much for having us. And so if we take the idea of the continuity of consciousness, if our consciousness is non-local, so when we die, when we leave our body, we transition to another frequency, another octave, call it what you will. But it would seem to me, and I think in terms, I love your book because it's very scientific in the approach. I want the mechanism of action by which something happens. It helps me to understand. But so if that's the case, if we can say continuity of consciousness is an actual thing, then it would seem to me that whatever frequency or octave or dimension that we go when we leave this physical three-dimensional reality, that place is also accessible with an out-of-body experience. Is that a reasonable extrapolation? Yes,
you're correct. Meaning that the reality that we will visit, and actually we can visit the place that we're going to be after we pass away before passing away in an out-of-body experience. So yes, your supposition or your theory it is what you see outside the body. You can have an idea of where you're going to be after you passed away. Yeah.
And we can visit people that are in that place.
And we can visit people who have already passed away who are also in that place. Yeah. Yeah, right. Indeed. Okay. Indeed. I think somewhere in my slides I have I was going to talk a little more about the near-death experience and talk about how they describe quite a bit how they many times meet relatives of theirs that have already passed away during the near-death experience, during the out-of-body experience component. And that is actually something that also happens with OBEs. We can meet these individuals, indeed.
Great. Yeah. All right, okay. Thank you. I have more questions later. I'll stop.
And by the way, I might cover some of them during the rest of the lecture, but you know, I won't let that stop anybody.
Kathy?
Go ahead, Kat.
Oops. In hearing you talk about these experiences, I always thought OBEs had to happen when you were asleep, but it seems like I've been in a lot of these places, like during really unusual, like guided meditations that will transport me somewhere else, or I took a class on accessing your Akashic room and accessing your guides from there, and I can instantly, you know, go there. And I mean, I always have my eyes closed, but it is like another place, and it's not this place. Or with Caritas, we do remote healing. So when you were talking about the assistance and the rescues, you know, the energy work, and then you said Reiki. So, you know, it's like, again, eyes closed, but we're connecting with kind of being to being or soul to soul, or I don't know, something not physical with this person. Do those count as OBEs, or do you have to be asleep?
What happens is that it can be all of those things. So it could be just that you are thinking about the place and having images in your mind of that place. It could be, which is probably what happens in most cases, that we end up connecting energetically with the place, and we are really having like an intuition and like a remote viewing of the place, and really almost starting to feel like we are there, even though we are just connecting energetically. And it could also be that we end up having an out-of-body experience, and we go to the place, and obviously we are there interacting with the so-called astral body, right? Us, ourselves being there. So all of these are possible things that can happen. Usually the out-of-body experience is only the third one. The thing is, which one is the one that we had on that opportunity? First of all, only we will know, because it's hard for somebody else to say, you know, that was or that wasn't. But something that tends to happen with out-of-body experiences, at least to give you some ideas of you know, when that happens, what is it that occurs, is that we feel a certain disconnection from the body, even if we haven't fallen asleep and if we aren't dreaming. So sometimes, yes, we fall asleep and the person wakes up in the middle of their sleep outside their body and very aware and looking at their physical body in bed, and then they go from there. And in that case, they don't even know how they got out. They just simply recovered the awareness while they were already out in the middle of their sleep. So some are like that. But others, especially when we start trying to produce them at our own will, we lie down, we relax, we start trying a technique, you start feeling that you're disconnecting, and you go through several stages of sensations, which is something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And you end up feeling, you know, that you disconnect from the body. Some of those sensations already advancing some things. You probably have already felt like, you know, the sleep paralysis, where you feel that you cannot move the physical body and you start trying to like scream and wake up the person next to you, but really nothing works. And in those cases, you're already a little bit disconnected, and that's why the body is not really reacting anymore. But other sensations are, you know, you feel that you are falling, or you feel like these sounds around your head that can be very loud, like static, like shh, or like a dry sound, like pack, pack, crack. There is really a list of them. Sometimes you feel like an internal vibration. It's called a vibratory state, or so you feel some of those sensations sometimes when you are awake and you are disconnecting from the body. But again, it might not be. It might be while you're sleeping and you already recovered the awareness outside. So giving you a few ideas, because that the variety of the experience is such that it's hard to say specifically which one you felt that time, Kathy. I think probably by your description, several of them were an energetic connection, and you were having, an intuition, pulling energies from the target and pulling some images and some remote viewing or clairvoyance from that target as well. So you start to almost see that room, and you start to feel that room, and you even start to feel a little bit maybe people who might be in that room as you are, focusing yourself in that on that target. So that could also be the case.
Okay. Another thing is when you said the heightened kind of awareness, it's like in some of those instances, not all of those, but some of them, it's like, it's not like a meditation where these other thoughts are always coming in. It's like you're very focused on just that thing. So interesting. Well, thank you.
Yes, of course. And I don't know, by the way, if I confuse things more than help, because just like with physical life, sometimes to any experience, it can be so complex and full of details. Sometimes I even say if we were to find an ET, for example, an extraterrestrial that asks us, so what is life on Earth like? How does it go about? What is the common trajectory? It's very hard actually to explain all the details, and we could go to like the most basic things and tell him, look, well, people usually are born and they grow, they live in a family, then they try to find a partner, they get married, maybe they have kids, they work at a job, and eventually they grow old and they pass away. And that's the basic trajectory. But we know that there are so many other trajectories that people end up taking in physical life that describing all of the details sometimes becomes extremely complex. Some things in the physical reality, they surprise you quite a bit, and they are so outside, that what we would consider the normal, right? When you think about different cultures, different religions, different countries. I don't know if you have heard, for example, of this group in Indonesia. I was in the island of Sulawesi a few years ago, that what they do when the person passes away is that instead of burying the person or cremating it or disposing somehow of their body, they actually keep the body of the deceased with them, and they bathe them and they put them on some oils, and they for example, sit them in the table and they put food for them, even though, of course, it's not going to eat because the person already passed away. But they are going around with the body of the person for months, sometimes years, until they bury them. And this is a habit that maybe for us sounds, well, different. Let me not label it. Let me just say sounds very different. But for them, it's the normal. And when you talk to them about the habits that most of the other world does, they are like, why? Because it seems that part of the reason why they do that is because they have an easier time letting go of the person because it's not sudden. Like with us, that the person passes away and then we, after a few days or a week, we no longer see the body and we no longer obviously have contact with the person, but we don't even see the body. So they keep the body, and it helps them to grieve a little bit more and to disconnect more gradually from the person. I don't know if it's better or not. I'm just describing to you, what they do. And I'm not saying that you should do that, or don't do it. I'm just describing the situation. But anyways, if an EP were to ask me that, I wouldn't go into describing that little detail, even though it's possible. If they all of a sudden they go to Indonesia and they see those people, they're going to be thinking, look, Luis over there didn't tell me about this. It's the complexity of human life, I guess. And outside the body, there is even more. There is a greater deal of complexity. But okay, let me see if we can try to organize some things a little bit more. So let's continue here with some of these ideas. So So why do people do it? Why do people actually want to, in the case, for example, I was telling you of classes, why do people want to develop it, right? So there are many reasons. A big one that we had already started, alluding to is the elimination of the fear of death. That, as you know, it's very common for most individuals, and rightly so, right? There shouldn't be any surprise. We are so used by this physical life and by this physical body to the physical experience that it's very hard for us at this moment to think of ourselves outside of this condition that is basically everything that we know at this moment, our self of identity, meaning notice that what our brain remembers at this moment mainly is what the five senses have perceived in this life. And then this is the data bank that we have access to. But the moment that you disconnect from the body, you certainly have access to your physical data bank, to that, to this laptop. This is like a portable computer with a hard disk that goes around perceiving things and recording things. Great. But the user is not the laptop. It's not the equipment. Us, the one that is clicking and moving the mouse, we can move away from the laptop and from the hard disk, and we can have experiences outside of the laptop, right? So, but for the laptop, it's hard to think about reality outside of the laptop. I don't know if I'm making it too philosophical, but so the interesting thing about the out-of-body experience is precisely that you can have direct experience of the fact that you are existing beyond the physical body, that you don't need to rely on the physical body, and that you can learn things outside the body that you didn't know inside the body, which is also an interesting thing. And of course, you can find individuals that already passed away, acquaintances, relatives that already passed away outside the body, and interact with them. And that helps you, for overcoming the fear of death. So that is a big thing. Now, obviously, for spiritual development, we acquire an understanding of ourselves that is bigger. We realize in this life, I am playing this role. I am, I have this body. I am used to this body, to this perspective, to these experiences, and even my body already puts me on a certain track. Like, for example, in my case, I was born a man in this life. Then it already puts me on a certain track of experiences, and other experiences I am not going to have because of this body that I have. So, for example, in my case, in this life, I am just simply not going to have the experience of having a kid. What I mean by having a kid, of course, is of gestation of a kid. I can have a kid as a man, but I'm going to need a woman for that, So I'm not going to be able to have the gestation of a kid. And it just simply puts me on a certain track. And it would have been very different if I had been born in this life on another track. I would have had other experiences that also would have helped me to have certain experiences, and would have, distanced me from certain others. Yeah, and no problem. But the point more than anything is the moment I leave my body, I realize I am the collection of many of these experiences, not just one, but the collection of many of these experiences plus all of my experiences when I didn't have a body. And then I have a greater understanding of myself, and I can see also a little bit better the trajectory of myself in terms of like evolution or development, so to speak. So this, of course, is also a very big thing. Even with regards to this, a very important point is, and one of the main reasons why people many times want to leave the body is this fifth point here in the 6th point actually here on this slide, which is the identification of our life purpose, which also helps us to understand this idea of spiritual development. Just like I was describing that we can be outside the body and we can see people taking classes because they are preparing, something that their next life, for example, or they're taking classes because they're going to go and implement that. By the same token, many times when we're outside the body, we realize I was here studying before I was born. The moment that you arrive and you visit that, and then you realize, okay, what is it that I wanted to accomplish? What was my initial intention for deciding to come into the physical life in the first place. And that also helps me with the idea of development, of organization, and with understanding what was it that I wanted to do, what was the main objective, the main lesson, the main project that I wanted to work on, the moment that I was here inside the body. And not that I am not doing it, and not that I am very far away from it. No, many of us, maybe we are. Some are a little bit closer, some are right on the trajectory, some maybe a little bit off. But the point is that, of course, understanding this a little bit can help us either to confirm our trajectory or to, correct it a little bit. Sometimes for some of us, it's just, or for some people, it's just changing a little bit the needle, and now they are, having the experiences and the development and the evolution that they had planned. For others, they don't really need to correct anything. They are right on track. Others, yes, sometimes they might have taken a slight detour, and it's good to, understand it so as to return. By the way, you probably have seen several of these examples when people have near-death experiences, and they come back and they say, look, I realized during the near-death experience, I am not doing what I wanted to do. And then they decide to change their profession, their career, their city. Sometimes, really, most of the cases, the changes don't need to be so physical and so external. They are changes that are more internal. Like, for example, I am going to start to see people with more kindness, with more dignity. I am going to pay attention to the human struggle more. Other people are not robots, but they are, a human being, also struggling there with their own, reality to a certain extent. So many of these changes, they tend to be a little bit more internal, but they're different for each one of us. Now, certainly some people have to they want to understand better other dimensions. Others, they want to re-encounter, other individuals that have already passed away. And this is a big thing. And let me see if I can help you think even about maybe something that is not so common. Certainly leaving the body and finding a relative of ours or a friend of ours that already passed away is interesting in and of itself, is very, very interesting. I don't want to downplay that. It's just that I want to sort of like maybe give you a perspective that might not be that common, which is the following. Sometimes we leave the body and we find these individuals that we have never known in the physical reality. They were never presented themselves during the course of our life. And they are not a spirit guide, much more evolved, much more developed, and, looking to help us and close to us, sort of like guiding us somehow. But they are a person with whom we had a few lives together, but many lives ago. They are an old friend. It's just that on these lives, our lives don't match. But when you encounter them and you see them and you start to remember what were the things that you had in common, sometimes it's very hard to keep your awareness and your emotional stability because you feel so close to this person. You are so emotional and so well received. For this person, it doesn't matter at this moment if we think that we are a good person or a bad person. This person has a very different perspective of you from other lives. And sometimes by these other experiences, I don't mean to say that in that other life, we were a scientist, we were, I don't know, somebody important in society. We were Isaac Newton, or I don't know, I'm trying to think here of a name of somebody very important, Charles Darwin, I don't know, somebody who made a big change in the way people think. No, sometimes we were just simply two brothers in, I don't know, in old France, in Canada. We were Eskimos there, and we were two brothers who struggled for 20 years with finding food. As simple of a life as that, which we probably had a few of those, in which we were just simply struggling to find food. But we, because we were struggling and taking care of each other and trying to, maybe hunt together or trying to find food and trying to feed the rest of our group and this and that. And then at the end, we passed away when we were 25 on that life, well, even before life expectancy wasn't that, wasn't as long. So in any case, the perspective that they have of us is this person with whom I shared so closely those 25 years, and we were taking care of each other so much. And at this moment, notice how this is an example of something that is not in our data bank. It's not in our memory. But when we find them outside the body and we recognize each other, the emotion of that is so strong that sometimes it's very hard for us to keep our stability and for the projection, for the out-of-body experience not to end and for you to come back to your body. Sometimes we come back to the body because we become so emotional. But for that person, we are so valuable, so well received, such a good old friend. And this, by the way, also probably helps you to understand why sometimes when people have near-death experiences, some of them, they describe how they arrive at a place where it seems that everybody's welcoming you because you are there not meeting two, three or four of these individuals, but you are meeting sometimes 10, and they all have such a different perspective of you. And we maybe are focused on our struggle in this physical life, and that I didn't do so well, and that was very difficult. And in here, I probably didn't speak to that person the right way or the way I wanted to. And this is what is consuming us in our mind. But the moment that we leave our body, we realize for them, that is not as important. They have such a larger perspective of who we are as an individual, and they know that we are struggling here, and they appreciate us so much that the emotion is through the roof. It's just simply hard to keep a lid on that. So the reason why those people describe that on near-death experiences is because of this effect. We are re-encountering older friends and people who knew us that just simply in this life we don't know. So that's an idea that's also a new idea to think about. Not all of our best friends and all of our closest relatives are from this life. Some are, yes. But many of our more dear friends are actually from other lives that we didn't match in this life. And it's nice, it's interesting to re-encounter them, yeah? Now, some people certainly, they want to help others while we are outside the body. Yes, while we are outside the body, we spoke a little bit about that. Now, encountering evolved beings, I know we spoke a little bit about this, the spirit guides, these are interesting experiences. Also, the increase of just simply our psychic abilities, our paranormal abilities. Many people, as they develop, for example, their out-of-body experiences, or as they start to have these experiences, they start also during their physical life to have, for example, a little more intuition, a little bit more clairaudience, a little bit more clairvoyance. And this effect also happens with people who have near-death experiences, which after this one experience, they come back and they realize that they have a little more intuition or a little bit more of another phenomena, for example, yeah? And then obviously also understanding this like universal ethics or cosmic ethics. There are many ways of seeing examples of this, even in the case of when we encounter our spirit guides and we start to think about them and sort of like, I don't know if the right expression is to say we analyze them, but we are trying to understand them a little bit better. For example, we start to think, why do they help me? What is it in them that makes them help us? And then we start to see the behaviors that they, how they behave, their intention, and we start to realize that they have a set of ethics, of criteria that are much more universal and developed. This is the reason why they are more developed than me, more than anything. Let me not put you in this bag, but certainly when I am interacting with them, I realize I am still quite a bit away from them, and in great part is because my level of understanding and of ethics is just simply not as refined as theirs. But we can get examples from that helps us, to start to want to put that into practice and to try to develop it, of course. So for some individuals, that is also a very big benefit, I should say. Now, okay. Now, some of the things, of course, are in my book. I sometimes like very much these direct interactions because we get to ask questions and go into more detail into a certain things. But let me talk here a little bit more about some of the most practical things, even because you probably might have felt some of these sensations. So this is just simply one of the pages of my book. I don't remember, 90, 95, something, where this is the result of a survey that was done on what are the more common sensations that people describe when they have out-of-body experiences. So it wouldn't surprise me, some of you have felt some of this. So the most common sensation is the falling sensation. So when you are lying in bed, half asleep, and you feel that you are falling. Sometimes you feel that more when you are waking up in the morning or when you are falling asleep, of course, at night. And that also is because many times you're already a little bit disconnected from the body, maybe just half an inch. But in terms of your sensations, because you are already feeling very light, as if the physical body is not there, sometimes we tend to interpret it as if we are falling. And sometimes there is this endless fall. Or sometimes it is, a very long fall ends up with a little bit of like a jerk or like a shake. So you can see here, or maybe you cannot see it that well. I think I need to go get some new glasses, but about 63% of the population, usually describe, that sensation. Now, the floating sensation, about 55. There are several others. One that I wanted to talk about is the fifth one here that has this medical term, catalepsy, that the most common, more layman's term expression is the sleep paralysis, which I was already alluding to. So the sleep paralysis, as you can see here, more or less 52% of the population describes it. And I think that always pointing this out is interesting because sometimes when it happens, if it has happened to us, when it happens to us, it normally happens in the middle of the night. And, we cannot move our physical body. We feel that something has gone terribly wrong. We get a little bit into a panic. And then after maybe 10 or 15 seconds of what we think is struggling, eventually we are able to sort of like move our body and wake up, and, we are able to breathe. And now we realize, okay, I'm back. And usually for most people, that is not a pleasant experience, even because it is something that surprises them. It comes out of the blue, and sometimes we have felt it once every 20 years. It doesn't really happen that often. And really what is happening there during the catalepsy is that when we sleep, we have the tendency as the physical body relaxes to disconnect from the physical body and to spend most of the night floating above the physical body, maybe about an inch or two away from our physical body. And by the way, if you have an out-of-body experience, for example, tonight, and you leave the body and you see somebody else who is sleeping close to you, your partner, your grandson sleeping in another room, the dog sleeping in the hallway, you're going to see that the astral body of the other person has disconnected from their physical body and is floating above their own physical body, maybe about an inch or two away from their physical body. So we all basically disconnect the entire night while we sleep, and then we come back in the morning. I sometimes tell this story of how when I was also a teenager, 18 or so, we would go to the beach for like a week. And my extended family would go. Actually, it was a lot of fun way back then. My cousins, my uncles, everybody. And the house was relatively small. So there was a bedroom with bunk beds, and we had three bunk beds in that bedroom. And maybe like 8 of us, the male cousins, we would sleep in that room. The female cousins were sleeping somewhere else, and the parents, they were sleeping in hammocks or in the cars. I honestly don't even know what the parents were doing. Honestly, I was in the room of the cousins, and we would play Monopoly until 2 a.m. and then everybody would crash and sleep. My point with all of this, going back to out-of-body experiences beyond this, is that because there were so many people sleeping in that room, on a couple of opportunities, I had OBEs during that week, and I could see my cousins sleeping. And then I would see them floating above their physical body. And I remember one time specifically with this cousin that I noticed that he started to move back into his body. And I thought, oh, he's going to wake up. And he went into his body. And the moment that he went in, he rolled in the bed, you know, like to shift positions, which is something that all of us, we do in the middle of the night. And then maybe like 30 seconds afterwards, he had disconnected again, you know, from his physical body. And he was floating again, you know, above his physical body. And I realized, oh, how many times I have done this, you know, in the middle of the night, of course, basically every night a few times. But most of the night, it seems that we are floating above our physical body. So in the case of the catalepsy or the sleep paralysis, what has happened is that in the morning, we start to return slowly and we reconnect and we regain our awareness and we wake up. But in this specific opportunity, we just simply recovered the awareness before the two bodies reconnected. And then because the two bodies haven't reconnected, we cannot move the physical body yet, because it's the same condition of when we are in an out-of-body experience, that you're not able to move the physical body. So it takes maybe like 10 or 20 seconds for us to return fully to the physical body and for us to be able to move it. But because we already recovered the awareness, which again happens once every 20 years spontaneously, we recover the awareness, we cannot move the body, and we think something has gone terribly wrong. I know many people who think maybe I died, you know, which obviously wasn't the case. In a matter of 20 seconds, they come back. But it can be a traumatic experience. So that's even the reason why I explain it, so as for you to be able to put another perspective on it if it has happened to you. And furthermore, let me even give you something more productive and beneficial maybe to think about with regards to this. If this were to happen to you tonight or tomorrow night, or, you know, again in 20 years, hopefully not that long, know that it's happening because you are more out than in. See here our physical conditionings. Because we are more out than in, what we think the moment that we recover awareness is, let me go back to my normal, to feeling my physical body and to having control over myself. But then now, at least with this lecture, know that since you are more out than in, instead of forcing yourself to go back in faster than, you know, the normal, because you're more out than in, think about going out. This is actually the easiest condition from which to have an out-of-body experience from. But what is required is first a little bit of information, and then for us to shift our perspective, our objective. Instead of forcing ourselves to come in, which is what our physical conditionings are telling us to do, you know, at that moment, think about, for example, rolling outside the body, you know, with your astral body. And you're going to see that you're going to end up in an out-of-body experience. This is one of the easiest conditions to have an OBE from, because really we are already more out than in. Yeah, so I'm saying this for you to have something even more beneficial, productive, that can give you another out-of-body experience. Yeah, I know that this is not the most common sensation, but in any case, if it happens to you, you know, take advantage of it. Okay. Sometimes, you know, by the way, just because you were in a lecture on out-of-body experience, the person at night still has the ideas of out-of-body experience, and then it ends up motivating them, you know, even sort of like a semi-consciously into an out-of-body experience or into one of the sensations. So that's why I'm mentioning it. If it happens to you, try to roll outside the body, and then you end up taking advantage of, you know, that opportunity. But you see here how usually our normal physical conditionings are such that we want to go back to our body, to what we know, what our data bank knows, right? Naturally, we are much more than this. Now, there are many others, of course, the sinking feeling, this going past the torpidity, the next one here, the intracranial sounds. These are the sounds that I was mentioning, that sometimes when we are disconnecting from the body, you start to hear these loud sounds around your head, sometimes like a static, like a shh. Sometimes some people describe it as if they had a lot of birds flapping their wings next to them, like a flap, 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 flap. But this can be very loud, and it's just simply showing that we are disconnecting from the body at that moment. Yeah, and obviously many others. We feel like electricity flowing through our body. You feel like a heaviness. Sometimes you feel very light. Sometimes you literally feel like your arm or a part of your body is disconnecting and moving, and you end up even feeling that you have two arms or three in this case, right? One on the left, one on the right, the two physical ones, but then the one that is disconnected. And you can also move this one, well, the two physical ones, for example, are still, and you're feeling them against your physical body, for example. So there are a number there of sensations that you can feel as you're having them, whether spontaneously or you're having them because you're trying to produce them, right? Let me actually stop over here and ask again if there are any questions so far with these two slides that we have seen, the benefits and the sensations. How are we doing? Cheryl has a question. Go for it, Cheryl.
Okay, Coach, here's the deal. I get to the point where I'm having the vibratory state, I'm having the catalepsy, and
Okay.
the intracranial sounds. And I can almost, without exception, I can get all the way to that place. But it feels like I get all the way to the door and I can't get through. And I don't have any idea how to push myself through to the other side. I'm so frustrated because I can get all the way there. I can experience all those things, but I can't go the rest of the way.
And obviously, I don't know specifically what is the technique that gets you there, because one thing are the energy work, and then there usually we switch after having worked with bioenergies a little bit or with vital energies a little bit into a technique that can be, based on breathing, based on imagination, based on different things. So normally what takes us through the door, I guess, to use or on the other side of the room, to use your analogy, is the technique that we were trying. As we keep on repeating that technique, keep on repeating it until it takes you to the other side. Even though it seems that we are on the threshold, try at that moment not to break the technique, not to push. I know sometimes at that moment we think, okay, here I go, and we start, sort of tensing and wanting to push out. The ideal is to just simply keep on repeating the technique or the mechanism that had taken us all the way to the door. Continue doing it until you are completely out. Keep your cool, keep concentrated until you are through the threshold. Yes, don't push.
All right, that's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, good. Maru and then Natalie.
Okay, my question is, do you have any report that when people are coming out, they get an extra help from the other side? And my second question is, how can I make the OBE last longer?
Okay. The first question, yes, they definitely get help from the other side. And this is a little bit what I was mentioning in your prior question, that maybe your spirit guide is already there, throughout the entire process. Sometimes we don't feel them because they are so smooth, or because we are sort of like used to them. They are so soft. So the process with them sometimes is so smooth, really, that it doesn't feel like there was a change in anything. But on other opportunities, I have heard of people, this hasn't specifically happened to me, but some people for some people that I know is very common, and for others it happens every so often, that they actually feel like these soft hands that are grabbing their hands.
To me. Yeah, that happened to me. That's what I asked you. I felt the hands pulling me from the top, and one time a hand pushing me from the side all the way. And that helped a lot. That's really cool, actually, because that was like, whoa, yes, I'm out.
Yeah, so there helps. You go. Yeah. So then you know that happens. Yeah, that happens. It actually hasn't happened to me. They have never. I have never at least felt specifically like these soft hands that grab you and pull you. but I know it happens to a good portion of
Okay.
people. Sometimes also you don't feel like a grab and a pull, but it's more like this. And again, it's a soft hand, a soft
Mhm.
touch. It's not, like the physical hand that has weight and we feel it if
Yeah.
somebody puts our hand on top of the other. But you feel like this very soft hand that is placed like on top of your forehead. And with this like very soft touch, there comes like a feeling, an energy, a vibe of like, relax a little more. We're
Mhm.
going, but relax,
Okay.
take it easy. So more often than not, that is the feeling that comes, from them. So yes, they do help. With regards to your second question, how do you make it last longer? Generally speaking, so we have this energetic system, the etheric body. You probably have heard of this, the energetic body that has all these energy centers, the chakras, the that are used for absorbing and sending energies out. So you probably have heard of the of the chakras, of the energy centers. And then this energetic system basically controls how easy it is for us to disconnect from the body. Because when we disconnect from the body, the energy mechanism sort of like splits in two. And part of the energies go with the astral body, and the other half, so to speak, stays with the physical body. And so how easily the energetic system splits is how easy it is for us to control the disconnection from the body. Now, for most people, the energetic body is a little bit more rigid. It's a little bit more unflexible, so to speak. And this is really no fault of ours. It's just simply Western culture. It's really that this is not part of our education. You know how we sometimes hear from our coworkers or from our relatives, boy, I gotta go to the gym and exercise more because I feel, that the 20 pounds from Christmas, Thanksgiving, put in there whatever last holiday we had, from Memorial Day weekend, are really adding up. So you hear how people are concerned about their physical health, but think about it. How many people do you hear that tell you, look, I should do more energetic exercise to keep my energy body in good shape? Usually we don't hear that much. Not fault of ours. It's just simply that this idea usually is not part of Western culture. It's just we didn't grow up with this, so it's not something that we concern about. And because of that, because we haven't exercised it too much directly, the energetic system tends to become a little bit more unflexible. And then we need to do like yoga for the energetic system, like exercises for the energetic system to recover a little bit its natural health, its natural flexibility, so that it can split easier and we can disconnect from the body. In essence, our physical body and all of our, our energy body, our astral body, they were made for us to be able to disconnect. It's just that, because of lack of information, again, Western culture, there are advantages to being in a Western culture and disadvantages as well. Made it so that we normally don't think about it. So the best thing to do is to learn energetic exercises, which I think that today probably I won't get to, but during the book, during the classes, one of the better ones is to run the energies up and down, and to try to increase the speed of them so as to arrive at this vibratory condition and flexibilize the energetic body. I don't know if you live close to Cheryl, maybe she can lend you the book. Because some of the exercises
actually,
are there.
I'm planning to get your book. It's right in my list.
Yeah, if not, online, we even have classes and everything. But certainly, if you let me take 2 minutes for this. I think it'll be very, very good and important for all of you. If you go to a room where you are undisturbed, almost like you're going to do a meditation, turn off the phone, everything, right? And then you close your eyes and you try to focus and to feel the energies inside of you, and you start to try to push the energies inside of you from the head all the way down to your feet. Now, it's not so much imagination, but you're going to feel this wave of like, for example, of like warmth that starts to move inside your body all the way down to your feet, or it can be colder, or you can feel it like a light wind that is moving inside your body, or like a magnetic sensation. You know, when they put the clothes that just came out of the dryer close to your arm and the little hairs stand up and you feel this like staticky like sensation? Sometimes you feel that static sensation that is moving down through your body. So concentrate on that sensation. So it's not imagination, but you're trying to concentrate on that feeling and move it down to your body, and then bring it up to your head, move it down to your feet, bring it up, running through the length of your body to your head, and then to your feet, and then to your head, and then to your feet, and try to see if you can speed up a little bit the flow. As you become better, and what this means, obviously, is that the 5th time that we're doing something, we're better than the 1st time. And like with anything in life, the 100th time that we're doing something, we're better than the 5th time. All of you that have more life experience than me, you understand the value of experience. So as you repeat that, you become much, much better. And that exercise is basically like the equivalent of walking for the physical body or running for the physical body. It'll put your energies in very good shape and it will make it flexible, like yoga for the physical body. I'm thinking here of analogies. So especially once you get to that vibratory condition, that'll flexibilize it. And that will make it so that your experiences will last longer. You will be more stable outside the body. Because what happens when your energies are in better shape is that you tend to leave most of the dense energies. The energy system doesn't split half and half. It's not like 50% goes with your astral body and 50% stay with your body. But if you are in better energetic shape, you leave 80, 90% in the body and you only go out with like 10. And now you are less physical and more stable. And the experience just lasts longer, generally speaking.
Okay.
And you also go to higher dimensions.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you.
It becomes easier. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. All right, go for it, Natalie.
Okay, so I was wondering if you can actually go looking for someone specific who has passed over and or who's beyond the veil, however you want to say it.
Right.
And what the best way to do that is. Yes, I mean, are there some ways that are better than others, the more that you're more effective when you're actually look for someone?
The short answer is yes, you can do it, of course. And the way to be more effective is to try to evoke everything that you had in common with a person, all of the shared memories that you had in common with a person. So let's say it's your dear sister. I'm just here, whether the person has passed away or not. Actually, this is even a technique for leaving the body. You if you happen to already be outside the body, then you can start thinking about her and the experiences that you had in common, and try to evoke everything that you know about her, how she looked when she was happy during her birthday, and when she was faking that she was upset when she was scolding her children, but really she just had to put a stern face, and then afterwards she was smiling. So all of those memories and experiences that we have of her, we try to remember them, and that connects us energetically, and you arrive at them, which is, by the way, the same way in which outside the body you reach any target. Is by thinking on the target, by connecting on the target. And something that can help you a lot there are your memories. Your memories of the place, of course. Even if these are places or people that you have never seen. If it's, for example, a common place. Let's say that we have never been to, I don't know, Paris, France. Maybe most of you have been there, but let's say that we haven't. We probably have seen a picture of the Eiffel Tower. So if you leave the body and you focus on the Eiffel Tower and you remember how the Eiffel Tower looks, What happens outside the body is that you create like an energetic connection that connects you there, and your astral body starts to go in that direction, and you arrive at the Eiffel Tower fairly quickly, in a matter of a second or a fraction of a second. But obviously it works better the more affinity we have with the target, which means with a person it works better, and the closer the person was to us, even better. Yep. All right, good. Okay, I think we're good, right? Let's keep on going here with a couple of more things here. So I think I put this up here because I just wanted to give some idea of, once we are outside the body. One of the first things, of course, is the issue of awareness. The moment that we leave our body, we want to try to be clear, aware, conscious in that experience, always as much as possible. And one of the things that can help us quite a bit is precisely this exercise that I was just describing of working with energies that we can do inside the body, the moving of the energies up and down, but also we can do it outside the body. And when you do it outside the body as well, especially if you have practiced it inside the body, and you get a good level of proficiency with it. When you try it outside the body, it works even faster, easier, and that usually helps you to stabilize yourself outside the body and to raise your awareness outside the body. And then after that, the experience becomes just much, much easier. Now, once you are outside the body, also, something that can help quite a bit is to explore, several of the characteristics of the astral body, how the features that you have when you are outside the body. So the astral body works differently than the physical body. At the beginning, we use it sort of like in the same fashion that we would use the physical body, because it's part of the conditionings and the habits that we have from the physical body. But little by little, we start to realize that we can do much more with the astral body. So a very simple example of this that I'm describing is the fact that the astral body can fly. So we can be outside the body and we can just simply, fly. Something that the physical body, I have tried even jumping from high places, and that didn't end well. It just doesn't go, Again, it's the half the turkey from Thanksgiving, probably. But when you are outside the body, obviously you can fly and you can go. You can, fly over the city that you're in, there over Boulder, or, you can fly all the way to Denver or whatever you want. But you see also here how a lot of our conditionings and habits from the physical reality carry over to the astral, experience, because of course we are used to it. So for example, outside the body, we can go through physical things, and you might have already experienced this, or you might have already heard of this, that we can go through a wall, we can go through a roof, through a window, etc. So the astral body doesn't really make contact with the physical body. So what this means is that when we are outside the body and the ground is there, and we want to advance, there is no walking outside the body because we cannot push ourselves from the ground. There is no traction. So we are always sort of like levitating at ground level. We're always sort of like flying at ground level. What happens is that at the beginning of our out-of-body experiences, even though we're levitating at ground level, the most common thing is to see people moving their legs, because it is the habit from the physical reality. It's a habit that sometimes we haven't even realized that we have acquired it, but it's very ingrained in us, because think about it. In here, how do we go around without moving our legs? We don't even think about it. But furthermore, there are some habits that we have from our physical life, because they are activities that we do almost every second, like walking. And there are other habits that we have from the physical life, even though they are activities that we have never done in the physical life, but we already have an idea of how that should go, and then we transfer that habit to the out-of-body experience. For example, again, flying. So think about it. Let's say that you have a dear relative of yours who lives in New York City, and tonight you have an out-of-body experience and you want to fly to New York City to see them. So if you're going to fly outside the body, in which position are you going to put your body? What do you think? Yes. Notice that I think that probably it's safe to say that physically, we have never flown with a physical body in that fashion. It's something that we have never done, like walking. However, we already have the idea in our mind from movies, from being aerodynamic, from airplanes, from birds. So outside the body, what you see is that you normally put your arms out or to the side, and now you're flying like a superhero. And not only that, I have seen people outside the body that when they're going to go to the right, they lean to the right, you know, like a plane. And of course, I'm thinking I do the same thing, but we are really, you know, animals of habit, you know, of conditioning. We get so used to those things because the astral body doesn't make contact with the physical body. We can, in essence, put ourselves in a ball, you know, make ourselves a little ball and fly in that position. And we are not faster or slower because of that. But nobody does that. Everybody will, you know, will go the superhero route because it's the conditioning that we have. So we tend to transfer a lot of conditionings outside the body. Some of them, you know, don't make a very big effect, like, you know, whether you fly in the shape of a little ball or you put your arms out, you know, or whether you're moving your legs, nobody's gonna point and laugh, you know. Well, I cannot say that. Maybe somebody might point and laugh, but my point is that doesn't really make any big effect on anything. But other things, they might make a slight effect. Like, for example, we are used to the physical body and we are used to seeing forwards because we only have eyes oriented in this position. So we see this 140-degree angle, more or less. So when we leave the body, we have the tendency to only want to see forwards because it's what we're used to. But on some experiences in which we have more awareness, or if somebody comes and tells us, you don't have to restrict yourself to that. At that moment, you realize that the astral body has the ability to see 360 degrees up and down. And now you're seeing spherically, as if you were a sphere everywhere. And the astral body has this ability. It's just that more often than not, we don't use it because of a habit. You see that, and then sometimes we miss half of the story. So, so those types of conditionings, little by little, as we have more experiences, we start to, you know, shed them, so to speak. We start to realize, okay, this works differently, and then we start to use more the astral body with more of its features, so to speak. Yeah. So, and there are several other things, of course, that conditions us, but this just to give you an idea of what ends up happening. Even sometimes, look, the transfer of information from some out-of-body experiences to the physical reality also becomes interesting. What I mean by this is the following. In this reality, we understand the idea of color, and things have color because color is a frequency of light. So, for example, the mug here that they came in to have here, don't laugh, but you know, I actually like it. So you can see all the different colors here of the mug. And then the color that we see, we know that it is because the light is hitting it and there's a frequency of light that we interpret as a specific color, red. And our eyes has a certain spectrum of light that is able to catch. So we are not able to catch things like, or physical eyes are not able to catch things like X-rays or, you know, radio waves, etc., etc. All right, no problem. We know how the eyes work. When you leave the body, the astral body doesn't limit itself to this range. It can see more than this. So what this means is that outside the body, you can see other colors that you're not able to see inside the body. So sometimes the wall that you think that is white and that you know that is white because you went to Home Depot and picked out the color and then you painted it with the rest of your family and you know that is gloss white number 060, you know, whatever the Pantone color was. So you did all of that. You know it's white. Now you leave the body and you have a little bit more of awareness on that experience, and you realize, you know what? Now that I am seeing it here outside the body, I realize that it's not exactly white. It's a different tone of color, but that my physical eye is not able to recognize that level of detail. Now, outside the body, you have realized that it's a different color, a color for which there is no name because it doesn't exist in the physical reality. So you outside the body, you say, when I come into the body, I'm going to write in my journal that it's not white, and I'll make up a name just for me to be able to refer to it later. What ends up happening, especially the first time, is that you come back into the body and you write in your journal, it's white, because your body and your brain don't have a way of understanding that memory that the body and the data bank has never seen. So sometimes the first time you write it's white, maybe on another night you leave the body, you are seeing the wall again and you realize it's not white. And oh my God, in my journal, I wrote that it was white. Wow. I wasn't even able to transfer the memory from the OBE into the brain. And you are aware of this when you're outside the body. You remember all of this. So you say the second time, I'm going to go back and I'm going to write this time that it's white. Okay, sorry, that it's not white. It's not white, it's not white. You go back the second time and sometimes you still write it's white. And the third time you still write it's white. But by the third or fourth or fifth time, your brain, that is not a fixed object, but it's more of an organic object and therefore a little bit flexible, creates a new synapse after like the third or fourth time. And then we're able to visualize it inside of our body. And we realize it's not white. And now we can write in our journal, it's not white. But sometimes the first time, the transfer isn't as easy because our physical body has never experienced that. You know, our physical body sometimes needs a few tries to get something. Well, the astral body is much faster. It's much quicker adapting to some of those things. Yeah. So conditionings, you're going to see that that's a big thing the moment that you're having OBEs. Obviously, we could also talk about, you know, this here for a while, but let me see. Shared experiences are interesting. Of course, I think I was alluding to them a little bit before. Indeed. Yes, I wanted to talk a little bit, of course, about techniques, because we were talking about the energy work that you can do, that is important to do, and to preface trying to leave the body with this energy work so that it flexibilizes your energetic system. But then normally after maybe 15 minutes or so of having worked with energies, then you switch into trying a technique that is mainly designed for taking you outside the body. So there are many techniques. In my book and in our classes, we probably go through like a half a dozen or a dozen techniques, but obviously there are many more. The first thing that is key is this work with vital energies, with bioenergies. This is really, really key. If the up and down movement is something that we haven't tried, then normally the techniques are going to have much less effect. But if we have tried very well the energy work and the energies are already flexible, then the techniques start to have an effect. Now, once you go into the step of the technique, since they are so many, we have to try to find, first of all, the one that fits better with us, with our personality or with our body, so to speak. And they are technique based on different attributes, like, for example, on control of the physical body, on relaxation, on breathing, on imagination, on being more intellectual and keeping something more mentally in our mind. So there are different techniques. One, for example, let me just describe one that let me see if it's here. Door opening, carbon. It's not even here. So let me describe one that is not even here. That way, I'm describing a new one, just because we had already started talking about due to the question of yours, Natalie, is the mental target technique. It's the technique of getting to a specific place or arriving at a specific person. So this is what I was describing is the way when you are outside the body, you get to a place or to a person. You think on them. This creates an energetic connection and you arrive at a place. Usually it's very quick. And the more affinity you have with the target, the faster it is. So it is much, much easier for me to arrive at my dear sister, who lives in Florida, or my mother who also lives in Florida, than to arrive at the Eiffel Tower. As well known as the Eiffel Tower is, I just don't have that big emotion for the Eiffel Tower, as I do towards my family, of course. Now, so that makes it much, much easier for me to arrive at them. But just like I use that outside the body to arrive at a specific place, I can start the process from within the body. And what I do is, if I am inside the body, I run the energies up and down, 10, 15 minutes, then I lie down in my bed, and now I start thinking, for example, of my mother or my sister. And by the way, let me say this, otherwise sometimes people ask me about this. My mother, but much more one of my sisters and the one that lives in Florida, they have out-of-body experiences. And my sister, many, many times, when she has out-of-body experiences, she tries to come and look for me so that I can show her something outside the body. She has 3 kids, so she's very focused on her 3 kids, and she doesn't have as many out-of-body experiences or she's not able to dedicate as much time on this as I, who am not as courageous and don't have kids. So I can dedicate a little more time on, on practicing certain things. So the reason why I'm saying I put my sister as a target is because we already have this agreement between us that, I'm going to go see if I can go get her, or she tries to come, and looking for me. Okay. So there is already this agreement, besides the fact that there is a lot of, we are very close, and, the type of siblings, you probably have people like that in your life that, if they knock on the door at 11 p.m. Unannounced, I am going to be surprised, but I'm going to say, hey, of course, come in, where the bed sheets are and the cover, raid the refrigerator, and we'll talk tomorrow. It's my sister. And the same thing if I were to do that with her. Obviously, we don't do it. I, plan things, 3 weeks in advance. But if that happened, there is already that level of proximity and of acceptance, right? So, having said all of that, going back to the OBE and the practical part, you work with energies, you lie down, you relax, and now I start thinking about her. Okay, so I remember her, when we used to play Monopoly when we were kids, when she was telling me about what happened, at work, the day that she graduated and how happy she was, the day that she had her first kid, and, how she was smiling because she was seeing him. So meaning all the shared memories that I have with her, I try to evoke in my mind to connect energetically with her. And so that the connection becomes so strong that it helps me to overcome the initial resistance of disconnecting from the body. And then I end up, in the place of the target, in the place where I want to go. So this technique of the mental target is a good technique also for having out-of-body experiences. Yeah, so I'm actually describing one that is not even in my book. I'm surprised that I didn't put it. I wrote the book like 10 years ago, and honestly, I haven't read it lately, so I don't remember what were the techniques that are there or not. But this one is actually a very nice technique, because the more affinity you have with the target, again, the easier it is to have success. Okay. Another good thing, if you have, for example, let's say that you lived in a house with your mother, or the house that you grew up in for some reason is still in your family, one of your relatives still owns it. You can lie down in your bed now, wherever you happen to live, in another city many miles away, and you can start to think about that house that you know very well, and you remember your bedroom where you used to sleep, and you can feel that you are in your bedroom, and you remember that this door leads to the bathroom, and the closet door where you had your clothes was here, and everything. You try to evoke the feeling of being in the bedroom where you grew up in. And because you have so many memories with that place, that also makes it very easier for you to have success and end up over there in an out-of-body experience, of course. So this is the mental target technique. But the idea is first you work with the vital energies, with the chi, the prana in your body, with the bioenergies, and then you switch to a technique that helps you to disconnect from the body. So I just described one, but obviously there are several that we can go through, and that maybe they might fit better to our personality, to an attribute that we are good at. For example, some people sometimes they say, I am not that good at imagination. Then I probably wouldn't start with the techniques of imagination. I would start with another one. Yeah, so an attribute, a characteristic of yours that you are, maybe a little bit better at. Yeah. Okay. All right. Questions first of all about this. Actually, we might be close to our time, but let's. I don't think we have too much more to go. We even already spoke about the near-death experience. Does anybody have any question so far?
We have 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Cheryl says this is so helpful.
Okay, good. All right. All right.
Natalie and Maru.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, okay. So I'm wondering if you have observed that some people just seem to have a greater facility to perform OBEs than others, even though the interest may be equal.
Or even less.
The earnestness to have the experience.
Yes, I have noticed that. Absolutely, yes. Different people have different predisposition, and sometimes even certain people who seem to have less interest have an easier time leaving the body than the other person who's really interested. At least I remember this couple that came to one of my classes. This was probably like 15 years ago, and he had read all the books. He really was very, very interested in leaving the body and doing the exercises, and she had never read anything, and she was even a little bit afraid of it. And in one of the maybe the second or third class, she ended up having an out-of-body experience, and then she was sort of almost like after a week or so, she was almost like how could I say, a little embarrassed to admit to him that for her it seemed like such an easy thing. And he was like, shut up, I've been trying to do it for so long. But yes, it happens. It happens. And I think, first of all, I think it has to do obviously with the predispositions that we have as an individual, as a person, which some of those, or many of those, probably not all of them, but many of those, they seem to come from past experiences and what have been our experiences before. So if somebody, for example, was a professional musician in 2 lives, 4 2 lives, then on this life, they just simply have an easier time, with music. And some of us are just tone deaf. And no matter how much money our parents pay for us to learn to play the piano, we just don't, some of us, we just don't get it. So it seems to be related, to a certain extent to how much experience we had before. Yeah. Okay, Maru, ask me.
Okay. Have you heard from anybody that when they reach the vibrational state, they resist it, okay? They don't want to come out, but they resist it so hard, but the vibrations turn stronger and stronger. And the more you resist them, the vibrations get stronger and suddenly you pop out.
They pop out. Yes. And actually, sometimes the first vibratory state that you reach, especially if you're reaching it under your own will and not spontaneous, can surprise you a little bit, the intensity of it, because it feels like an internal earthquake,
Yeah.
And then, sometimes it surprises people. And I know that sometimes certain people, when they feel it the first time, they're even thinking in their mind, and they have told me this, they were so surprised that they started saying, stop, please stop. And they rather do it the third time and get used to it instead of just going the first time. So yes, it happens. But obviously, sometimes it gets a little, because sometimes with these things, especially with the energy work, we look a little bit like a baby who's starting to walk. And you probably have seen this. It's because I was seeing one of my nephews, one of my younger nephews doing this. You know, when the kid, or the mother is going to show you how the kid now can walk, and the kid starts to walk, but starts to go sideways and arrives at the other wall instead of arriving at you. So we look a little bit like that at the beginning with energy work and with out-of-body experiences as well. That the first time we sort of are handling it, but not fully. And then we come out and we are sort of like flying a little as if we were drunk, but we are not really drunk. It's just simply we are still handling the experience. So yes, that happens sometimes with the energies, that you're trying to stop it, but they end up becoming stronger, and then you end up disconnecting from the body.
That helps to get out of the body when you resist it, because that happened to me. What happened is one night, and I don't know if this is normal, I had several spontaneous OBEs in a 2-hour frame.
Okay.
And I got scared after the third one, because I said, well, is it normal to have one after the other? So I woke up, I was aware, and I wanted to continue sleeping. So I went to sleep, and the vibrations started. And I was so aware that I was like, right, here we go again. So the third one, I was like, okay, is this normal? So I resisted, okay? I said, no, I don't want to, not because something wrong was happening to me, it's because I was not sure if that was okay. But then I resisted so much that I just came out, and I said, okay, I will go. And then I came back, and again it happened for 5 times. And then I just decided to wake up. It was like a Saturday. That's what I was okay staying in the bed, right?
Right.
It happened early in the morning. So my question to you is, it is normal to have that specific situation where I have?
I wouldn't say it's the most common thing, but it certainly happens.
Okay.
It certainly happens, and that's exactly.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Actually, the hardest out-of-body experience is always the first one of the night. So if you have one night, having a second one the same night is easier than having the first one, and having a third one is easier than having a second one. So usually the first one is the hardest one. After that, we are left more loose energetically when we come back. And then having a second and having a third one is easiest. If we don't become surprised, if we keep our emotional, stability. What I mean by that is, if we come back from the first out-of-body experience and you start jumping on the bed and celebrating, yes, OBE, you probably will not have a second one.
Oh yeah, of course.
You change your energies completely.
Yes.
But if you come back from the first OBE and very calm, almost like professional, you grab your journal, you take some notes, you lie down, you relax. Having a second one will be much, much easier.
Oh, and
third one
okay.
I
was not sure if it's like there's an amount of OBEs you kind of have in one set, in one time, or there's no restrictions. Okay.
No, there is no restriction. Yeah.
Okay.
There isn't. So, and again, it's not the most common situation, but it does happen.
Okay.
It certainly happens.
Just good to know.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Let me just, I guess, conclude here. I know we had already spoken a little bit about the near-death experience, and one of the main things to say here is that, of course, these positive effects that people have from the near-death experience, you can also have in out-of-body experiences. The difference is that they don't all come in one bunch, but the out-of-body experience, they come little by little, and they allow you to digest them a little bit better, because the near-death experience, sometimes it's all at once, and obviously these individuals, when they go through a near-death experience afterwards, they try to digest that the best they can, naturally, like all of us. We're all trying to do the best we can. But the out-of-body experience gives you more opportunities, more bites at the apple, so to speak, and then it allows you to digest it, to understand it, to test it, to see even more details of things. Besides the fact that you are not near death, you are not exposed or in any risk at all. And okay, good. This was actually the last slide, so just in time. All right. Other than that, on my side, I know probably, Gloria, you will mention something. I just want to thank you all for your interest and for the opportunity. It's certainly a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much, Luis. I think it was a fascinating presentation, very helpful and exciting. So thank you so much for meeting with us, and I hope we'll see you again sometime.
Yes, indeed.
And thank you all for attending.
And now that you say that, the joke that one of my colleagues says is that we hope to see you soon, if not inside the body, then hopefully outside the body. Okay.
Out of body or in.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.